welcome to a Cal on Yarns vlog. So this is not my usual podcast. You can find my usual half-hour, 40-minute podcast on the Cal on Yarns YouTube channel, but this is just a little bit of a vlog about a project that I wanted to do, but I wanted to make my yarn budget pennies go a little bit further. So using yarns that are already one colour, you can over dye in colours that you are more likely to use. Maybe if you haven't dyed yarn before, then you should kind of see it as a way to find those yarns in your stash that you don't like the colours of anymore, or view those sale bins or those sale pages on websites with a little bit more of a canny, budgety eye. I am not a prolific hand dyer. I think if you want specific colours, that you're trying to match specific colours, then you need lots and lots of practice. But if you know that you want, I knew that I wanted a sort of a berry raspberry red for a little project, then just have a play. And if the worst comes to the worst, you can always over dye it with navy or black or something like that, and just knit it up into a hat, a darker cardigan, a darker jumper. It doesn't really matter. But the important thing is that you're still using natural fibres. You are playing with colour and maybe gaining confidence if you are not a dyer or if you haven't dyed before. This is not a tutorial. I will put links to tutorials below here that I found useful when I wanted to have a little play, but it can be really quite inexpensive when you just want to over dye some yarn you have or dig in the bottom of those sale bins. So for this project, I just want to give you a bit of background. I wanted to make the Carbuth cardigan, which is this, by Kate Davis, and it calls for 2 strands held together. I just want to show you the back because it's really lovely. Very pretty shaping there. But yeah, 2 strands held together, which can be quite expensive if you're using hand-dyed yarn or even manufactured yarn. It can prove quite expensive. I knew I wanted a solid, a semi-solid colour. I knew I wanted it in a dark raspberry type colour. So I bought some grey yarn, as you will see, and just over-dyed it. And it's come up really nicely. Is it the specific colour I wanted? Well, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted, so it doesn't really matter. But this is just a little bit of thinking outside the box. Have a little look. Have a look at the tutorials on YouTube that you can find about hand dyeing, and with just a little bit of investment, your stash gets opened up into a whole new world. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you'll catch my usual podcast on the Cal on Yarns YouTube channel. Catch you later. So yes, as I said, I'm trying to make my pennies go a little bit further. So this is what I have. I had these balls from Wonderful Wales. I bought them in April this year. So these balls of Puna, which is a superfine alpaca. Is it going to? Yeah, superfine alpaca. And there's 110 meters on that ball, and it's pure, 100% alpaca. So obviously, normally you wouldn't knit with 100% alpaca for sweaters and things because it might be a bit stretchy, but I thought, hey, I'm going to give it a go. These were really, really reasonable, £2–3 a ball maybe. I got them in a bit of a sale at Wonderwool. So for the Carbuth cardigan, you need 2 strands knitted together. So I have bought, obviously, 12 balls of this stuff, and I am putting it into skeins, and then I'm going to dye it with probably a raspberry colour on top of the grey. I'm not an experienced dyer at all. I just play, mess around. But sometimes, you know, you just need to think outside the box to try and get the best yarn, colours that you sort of like, experiment with patterns and things like that, so you can save yourself a bit of money, but you're still working with pure fibres. So I will show you how I skein it up into smaller hanks, and then we'll have a little look at dyeing later on. Okay, see you in a minute. Hi, so forgive the detritus of my house. I'm just going to show you, if you don't know, how to skein a ball of yarn. So you've got your Swift, and I put it on the back of a chair. So if you attach it to the back of the chair and put it at this angle, then obviously you can rotate round and make a skein again. So I've got my ball of yarn here. I found the centre pull, hopefully. It doesn't matter if you can't find the centre pull, it just means that the ball is rolling around the floor all the time, which isn't ideal. So just place that on the floor, and then if you just attach the yarn just loosely to one of the strands, just a tiny little knot like that, so that you can undo it later. It just means that it's attached, then you can start to roll it round. So then, holding on to that, if you just start to spin it around, it starts to take hold and take shape, and then you kind of just carry on spinning it around, really. And then it's up to you to decide how tight you want it, how big you want it, by how wide you spread the umbrella bits of the Swift, yeah? So I'll just carry on with this. It's very time consuming, but you can put put YouTube on, put the radio on. It's fine. If you're saving you pennies, it's always good. To the end, it's very high tech, I know. Once you get to the end, you've got the little bit where you started and the bit where you finished. Now these are the way you can tie those together. So if you just gently untie that bit, like so. So you've got your two ends, you've got your start and your beginning. So then I just take a little bit of yarn, the same yarn possibly, to be able to do. There are better YouTube videos than I'm going to show you about how you can kind of do a figure of 8 tie on a hank, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So you just split it in half and you sort of send the yarn through. I'm not good enough with my camera to show you exactly, so have a little look at the YouTube tutorials. They'll show you much better than I can. So there you go. You've got your little figure of 8 that's gone through the hank there. So I always tie in my ends when I'm tying that together. So I'm tying my figure of 8 and my strands in together so that I know where the beginning of the hank is when I come to ball it up later. It's fine to kind of tie it quite tight, but make sure you've got plenty of room, because if you're going to dye it later, you want the dye to be able to get into all these strands. So as you knot it, you might need to tighten it up, but just make sure you leave enough room that you can spread it out later. Okay, so that's all tied together. So then you want to loosen it off as much as you can. Spread those threads out as much as you can, and then I always put one on the other side over there. Spread it out. And release it from the Swift. So there you go. So you can snip those longer ends there. So you've got a nice little skein. Ready to pop in the dye pot later. I'm only going to go for a solid colour. I don't mind if it's slightly tonal, but because it's got the grey, hopefully it'll be a nice deep colour, but we'll see later on. So yeah, there you go. So they are all skeined up. Ta -ta -ta -ta. An arm of yarn. Boom. So I shall now pop these in to soak with some water and citric acid. See you later.